Most of the races at that time for 24, 25 laps, were they 6 miles, and it was only at the international events you had 10,000?
No, I remember running. I remember running a 6 miles when I was 17.
Okay.
Which was at the recently built Roger Bannister Stadium, not far from here, and it was where I did much of my training.
Okay.
And I can't remember the time, but the world record for an under 18-year-old, someone who was 17, was held by Jerry Lindgren.
Sure.
A child prodigy in himself in his athletic career, and a great US runner. And I thought that I could beat it, and we had a 6 mile attempt, had a few friends and to help pace the thing early on, and at 17 I ran 29:15 point something, and broke his record by 10 or 20, I can't remember. Interestingly, I've got an old Super 8 film of it.
That's cool.
And it's one of the few records of me running without a moustache.
Oh my gosh.
The Munich Olympics, of course, in '72 was one of them. But apart from that, I've always had a moustache since probably at 17, after that race, I think.
In retrospect, looking at, you ran great records, you also ran gutty in some of the championships. What was the challenge for you in championship races?
I think when I came into this period, when I became a challenger who could on a good day win events, European Championship '71 as an example. For the first time, really in the history of distance running, there was a new aspect to it, and that was that there were quite a few people who could run 52, 53 seconds for the last 400, and the only way I was ever going to beat them was to be absolutely on top form, and run away with them. And in the Europeans and the Olympics, and indeed the Commonwealth Games in probably 74, I failed to be on my best shape. In other words, I had chances to win, but I had to be 100%.
Sure.
And I was only at 90.
Okay.
So I never won a major gold medal at Europeans, Olympics, and I don't know whether we could have done anything about that.
Sure.
But it is what it is.
You told me last night just a little bit, I asked you about Steve Prefontaine, who was fascinating to Americans. There's almost a cult about it, and you said you knew him pretty well. What can you tell us about, what was he like at that age? What could you tell us about him that people would understand?
I think that at that age, Steve and I were very, very similar. Full of bullshit, brash, absolutely convinced that we were the best thing out there. And he would have viewed me as the English version of him, and I viewed him as the US version of me. There were other players at the time, but the two of us were very, very similar. The long hair, enjoying a beer and a decent social life, as well as training hard. And he only ran the 5,000 metres in Munich, 1972 Olympics. I'd already run the 10, and I'd only finished 6th in that. So I was already mentally a bit weak for the 5,000, but I made the final. Remember that we had heats for the 10 and then the final, and then heats for the 5,000 and then the final. and he thought he could win. He didn't win. Mate of mine, Ian Stewart, got a silver medal. He was devastated because he didn't win. Lasse Viren, of course, won both the 5 and the 10, so he was up and at it. And Steve finished 4th, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
And he was devastated. He was devastated. I finished 11th or 12th, and I was less devastated because I never got a chance to win that. But I do remember spending the evening after the 5,000, predictably in a bar, getting slaughtered, talking about the future, and it wasn't long after that. I think, was it 1974?
75 is he?
75.
Car crash,
yeah. And I remember being devastated when all of a sudden he was no longer with us.
Yeah.
And I often think about how his life might have turned out, because he was clearly bright and motivated. And it's quite interesting knowing someone, you know, in a very similar, and recognising them as a similar person to you, and then their life is snubbed out and yours continues. Who knows? Who knows what would have happened? But sure. It was shocking and sad, and potentially could have been avoided. But then that's what we all know about life.
Sure. Cheers. Let's talk about your world record. What do you recall from that race?
I recall being in a period of my life when I was doing very high mileage. So I was doing regularly 200 miles a week.
Okay.
Which meant that this was leading to 1973. So this was the year after the Olympics.
Right.
And I had about 5 months off after the Olympics. I just couldn't be asked, and I didn't fall off the rails. I didn't go off the rails, but I wasn't far off of it. And then pulled it back together again and said I'd have another go. Doing 200 miles a week, you constantly get injured. So whilst you get very strong, it's only a matter of time before you break down. And I'd had 5 good weeks training, free of injury, leading into the 3A's Championships in '73 in July. And although I'd had time off, I was running very well, and I felt that I could go for it. And I told a couple of close friends that I was going to have a crack at it. I don't think they believed me. And at Crystal Palace, I lapped everyone in the field with the exception of Tony Simmons,
Tony, yeah.
who was a great runner himself, and was actually in the lead at halfway. So it would be wrong to say that there were no paces in the race, but I competed all the way through to halfway with him, and then I was able to leave him. And I knew probably from about 4 laps out that I was going to break it. This was Lasse Viren's record.
Sure.
From the Olympics.
Yep.
And he just hardly broken, but he did break Ron Clarke's 27:39. Those last 4 laps were interesting, knowing that you were going to do it. And sensing that the stadium knew that it was going to happen.
Was the crowd loud? Do you recall them being very loud?
Yeah, there was only about 7,000 people there, I think, on the Friday night, because it tended to be heats and
sure
heats of the distance events and the shot put, right? and nothing wrong with shot putters, right? Okay, I don't ever want to upset a shot putter.
Oh, you agreed. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No. It was clear that those people who were there understood that they were seeing something that was different. And remember, Great Britain had never had a world record at 10,000 metres. And crossed the line, won, found Bob Parker, we did a victory lap together.
Oh, nice.
You know, there was all the hullabaloo, front page of the papers and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, quite exciting. Got persuaded to run the 5,000 metres the next day, and wasn't up for it. You know, just knackered. I mean, I'd had a few beers that night and hadn't slept very well. But yeah, it was an exciting weekend. And whilst I've never met an athlete who has ever said I couldn't have run any faster than what I did, I think I could, in my generation, if I hadn't got injured, because I was injured out, I think I could have got to 27 minutes, but I don't believe I could have got to 26:50. But for me, I've never had a problem in believing modern times, and I'm an optimist about things.
Sure.
And I think if I could have run 27 minutes, then people running 26:50, 26:40, 45 years on is not impossible.